Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. Please subscribe and like this video for more content.
These blossoms remind me of our love, always blooming,
And with you, it feels eternal.
eternally.
If you leave this house, don't ever think about crossing this threshold again. Those words from my mother-in-law, Jung Ok, still echo in my ears to this day. That voice colder than the frigid sea wind is something I will never forget for the rest of my life. There was a truly shocking reason why things came to this. To all of you listening to this story right now, where do you live? How old are you, and what are you doing while you listen? Please leave a comment and let me know. I'm curious about your stories too. I lived in a small port village at the very southern tip of the Joseon land, where the sea wind blew all year round without rest. It was a place where, without fail, the smell of raw fish and salt-laden wind would brush past your nose at the break of dawn. Whenever a boat came into the harbor, the villagers would gather one by one, and I too was among them, taking on all the work of the early morning market. It was the third year after I had come to this house as a bride. At the age of 22, I was already shouldering every difficult task in this household. Rising before the pale light of dawn had even faded, lighting the fire in the hearth, going out to the market to collect the fish that had come in that day. That was how my day began. My mother-in-law, Jung Ok, was a woman of few words, but few words did not mean she was easy to deal with, not by any means. Mother Jung Ok governed this household not with words, but with rules. The morning greeting had to be completed before the sun rose, and one had to step back from the dining table before exactly 3 spoonfuls had been taken. The bedding inside the room always had to be folded in the same direction, and the laundry had to be finished at the well without fail before the sun reached its peak in the sky. At first, I simply thought of her as a strict elder. I believed that hardship after marriage was naturally like this. My own mother had been the same, and the other women in the village lived that way too. And so I believed it was only natural that I should live in accordance with those rules as well. But as time passed, I began to feel a little more suffocated with each day. Mother Jung Ok's rules were not simply household tradition. They were a silent surveillance directed at me, the daughter-in-law, an invisible fence that kept me locked inside a mold. My husband Du-yun was a fisherman. More often than not, he would go out on the boat at dawn and not return until the sun had set. He was a quiet man. Perhaps he took after his mother Jung Ok's temperament, for even when he came home, he did not say much. I found him frustrating, yet at the same time I understood him. What could you expect from a man who had spent all day wrestling with the rough sea? Still, there were times I hoped he would take my side. On the days when my mother-in-law's scolding was particularly harsh, when it was plain to see that I was struggling, I hoped he would offer me even a single word of comfort. But Du-yun always ate in silence and went to bed in silence. Not taking either side between his mother and his wife was simply his way. That silence sometimes felt like indifference to me. There were times I thought that saying nothing was no different from siding with my mother-in-law. But I could not say such things out loud. All I could do was endure, one day at a time. That winter was unusually cold. The sea wind cut right to the bone, and the water at the harbor's edge had frozen solid. The road to the early morning market was even harder to bear. My hands were so frozen it was difficult to pick up the fish, and my feet felt as though they would split apart inside my straw sandals. Even on days like those, Mother Jung Ok would, without fail, say the same thing when I returned. How were the fish prices today? If they're lower than yesterday, it's your fault. I bowed my head instead of answering. How could the rising and falling of prices ever be my fault? But that kind of reasoning held no weight with my mother-in-law. Every bad thing that happened in this house was my fault, and every good thing was simply taken for granted. Around that time, I was also receiving even sharper looks because I had not been able to conceive a child. More than 3 years had passed since I came to this house as a bride, and there was still no news, so the whispers among the villagers grew louder and louder. Mother Jung Ok never said it outright, but her eyes alone were more than enough to convey her meaning. "You are not fulfilling your duty," I cried alone every night. Crouched in a corner of the kitchen where no one could see me, I swallowed my tears without making a sound, and no matter how much I thought about it, I could find no answer to why my body was this way. or why only I had to endure such trials. I desperately longed to go back to my family home, but my own mother had given me strict instructions when I first came here as a bride. A woman who has gone to her husband's house does not leave the house until she is carried out in a coffin. That, she said, is a woman's duty and the honor of the family. I carved those words into my heart again and again. No matter how hard it was, I gritted my teeth and held on. I believed that was the only act of filial devotion I could offer. Then one day it happened. On my way back from the early morning market, I came across a woman at the well. It was a face I had never seen before. The woman, with her delicate features and neat appearance, was drawing water from the well when our eyes met, and she gave a gentle smile. "You're out early." Her voice was clear and soft. I smiled awkwardly and replied, "I have work at the market." The woman nodded, balanced the water bucket on her head, and passed by me. That was the first time. I did not know who she was or where she had come from. I simply thought of it as a chance encounter that would pass without significance. But a few days later, I learned that the woman was a widow who had recently moved to our village. They said she had not even been on her own for a full year since losing her husband. Her name was Chaiwan. Chaiwan lived alone in a small hut near the harbor. The villagers whispered about her. What could a young widow living alone possibly be getting up to? They said. Every time I heard such talk, I felt uneasy. I thought it was wrong to speak carelessly about someone whose circumstances you did not know. But Chaiwan herself seemed entirely untroubled by such rumors. She came out to the well every dawn, and during the day she sold small items at the edge of the village. She seemed to have nimble hands, for she made things like hair ornaments and small pouches herself, and put them up for sale. She stayed on my mind in a strange sort of way. When we crossed paths at the well at the same hour, we exchanged light greetings, and sometimes we shared a few words. Chaiwan was kind to me. She would say something concerned, remarking that I looked worn out, and once she even gave me a small handmade pouch as a gift. I was afraid of growing closer to her. It was clear my mother-in-law would not approve if she found out. The very act of spending time with a widow was something that could not be permitted in this household, and yet the time I spent talking with Chaiwan was my one and only source of comfort. She listened to me. How hard things were for me, how suffocating my mother-in-law's rules were, how indifferent my husband was. I opened up to Chaiwan about things I had never been able to say to anyone. She quietly nodded and held my hand. That must be so hard. When I was living with my husband's family, it was similar for me. That one sentence from Chaiwan was an enormous comfort to me. It was the kind of thing only someone who knew the same pain could say. And so, little by little, I opened my heart to Chaiwan. At the time, I had absolutely no idea what great waves that would set in motion later on. One day, my mother-in-law Jiang Ok called for me. Her voice was even colder than usual. I walked into the room with a sense of dread. "I hear you've been spending time with that widow lately." My heart dropped. It was clear someone had reported me to my mother-in-law. I did my best to keep my composure and replied, "I have only exchanged a brief greeting with her." Mother Jiang Ok did not listen to what I said. No, she did not want to listen. "What do you intend to do if word gets out that the daughter-in-law of this household is associating with a widow?" "Put a stop to it immediately." I bowed my head. The urge to defend myself rose all the way to my throat, but I could not let it out. In this house, I did not have that right. That night, I cried again in a corner of the kitchen. It felt as though even my one and only friend was being taken from me. I thought that there was not a single person in this entire world who was on my side, and yet I could not stay away from Chaiwan. No, I did not want to stay away, even knowing it was wrong to meet her in secret. Hiding from my mother-in-law's eyes, I could not stop seeing her. Chaiwan showed me a different world. To me, who had been living trapped inside the rules of this married life, she told me stories of the world outside, landscapes of distant villages, people she had met at the market, dreams she had dreamed as a child. Listening to those stories, I could forget this suffocating reality, even if only for a little while. One day, Chaiwan asked me, "If you could escape all of this, what would you do?" I could not answer that question readily. What it meant to escape, I could not even imagine it. I had always believed that my fate, having come here as a bride, was to die in this house, but that night I imagined a different life for the very first time. Leaving this house, starting a new life somewhere far away, thinking about whether such a thing could even be possible. I lay awake through the entire night with eyes wide open. As time passed, my mother-in-law's surveillance grew ever more intense. She tried to keep track of everywhere I went, everyone I met, everything I said. Some among the villagers seemed to be reporting my movements to Mother Jung. Okay, I grew more and more tired. It felt as though I could not breathe. Even when I came back from the early morning market, my heart was not at ease, and I could not sleep properly at night. Then one day, something unexpected happened. My husband Du-Yun spoke to me first. "You've looked very worn out lately." I was startled by those words. It caught me off guard that he had been paying attention to my complexion. I forced a smile and replied, "I'm fine. It's always been like this." Du-Yun looked at me for a moment, then went into the room without a word. But that day I sensed something different in his eyes. Something that was not like his usual self, something like worry. A few days later, Du-Yun carefully brought something up. "I know that Mother has been too harsh." I could not believe it. He had known, and yet why had he not said anything until now? I did not voice that question aloud. Instead, I quietly asked, "Then why didn't you do anything?" Du-Yun was silent for a long time. Then he answered in a low voice, "Caught between Mother and you, I didn't know what to do. It felt like no matter whose side I took, the other would be hurt." Those words brought tears to my eyes. Feelings of hurt and feelings of understanding came over me at the same time. He too had been struggling in his own way, but that did not make my pain disappear. "Things will be different from now on." Du-Yun said that, holding my hand. I wanted to believe those words. I thought, how wonderful it would be if something could truly change, if I could escape even a little from this suffocating daily life. But change did not come easily. It seemed as though Du-Yun had said a few things to his mother, but Mother Jung only grew colder in response. She was displeased that her son was taking his daughter-in-law's side. "You've been bewitched by that woman." Mother Jung said that to Du-Yun. I heard those words from outside the room, and it felt as though my chest was caving in. That woman. I was nothing more than a useful laborer in this household. After that incident, Mother Jung-ok's manner became even harsher. She poured criticism over me morning and evening, and scolded me mercilessly the moment anything was even slightly out of line with her rules. I grew more and more exhausted, and I could feel both my body and my mind beginning to deteriorate. Chai-won was worried about me. Every time we crossed paths at the well, she would express concern that my complexion looked far too poor. I said I was fine, but in truth, I was not fine at all. One day Chai-won said carefully, "You cannot keep enduring this. Once your body breaks down, there's no going back." I had no answer to those words. I did not know what I was supposed to do if I did not endure. I had no way to return to my family home, and no way to leave this house either. Then one winter night it happened. It was a night when the wind blew with particular ferocity. I had been working in the kitchen until very late when I collapsed. It was because I had not eaten or slept properly in several days. When I came to, I was lying inside the room. Du-Yun was sitting beside me with a worried expression on his face. "I'm sorry." He said that in a low voice. Those words made tears run down my face. I'm sorry, that one phrase was something I had been longing so desperately to hear. But my mother-in-law Jung-ok was different. She said that my collapse was my own fault as well. "What kind of daughter-in-law are you if you can't even take care of your own body?" At those words, I could no longer feel anything at all. My heart was already far too exhausted. A few days later, Mother Jung-ok called me in and sat me down before her. I had a rough idea of what she was going to say. Not being able to conceive a child, having a weak body, associating with a widow, all of those things were going to become the charges against me. Mother Jung-ok spoke coldly, "If you leave this house, don't ever think about crossing this threshold again." At those words, it felt as though my breath stopped. She was telling me to get out. I had gritted my teeth and endured for 3 years, and it was going to end like this after all, I thought. Du-Yun, sitting beside me, was unable to say a word. I looked at him. I pleaded with my eyes, "Please, just say one thing." But he kept his head bowed and stayed silent. In that moment, I understood. There was not a single person in this house who was on my side, and the time had come for me to make a choice. Outside, the fierce sea wind was still blowing in. I made up my mind. I could not go on living like this any longer. Whatever it might be, something had to change. And that night, I was to encounter something I never could have anticipated. That morning, as soon as I opened my eyes, one side of my chest felt heavy. In my dream, I saw my birth mother Munai. Mother just looked at me without saying anything. The wrinkles around her eyes had deepened, and more white frost had settled on her hair. I tried to approach Mother, but my feet would not move. Then I woke up from sleep. Since coming to my husband's house, the times I had been to my birth home could be counted on one hand. Mother Jongnak did not look favorably upon her daughter-in-law frequently coming and going to her birth home. It was Mother's iron rule that a married woman belongs to her husband's family. I tried hard not to break that rule, even when I missed my birth mother, even when I longed for her. I endured it. But that day was different. Just for today, I wanted to see Mother. Those words I heard from Mother Jongnak last night, if you leave this house, don't ever think of crossing this threshold again. Those words would not leave my head. If I were truly to be driven out, what kind of face would I show Mother? Before that happened, I wanted to see Mother's face even just once. When I entered my mother-in-law's room to give my morning greetings, I was making plans in my mind. It was clear that if I simply said I wanted to go to my birth home, I would not receive permission. I needed a different excuse. Just then, I remembered a rumor I had heard at the market yesterday. It was a story that workers were urgently needed to organize goods at the port warehouse. Several women said they were going to receive day wages. I decided to use that as my excuse. Mothers say workers are urgently needed at the port warehouse today. May I go? Mother Jongnak looked at me for a long while. I could not tell what could be read in those eyes, whether it was suspicion, displeasure, or just annoyance. How much do they say the day wages are? I heard it would be 5 nyang. Mother thought for a moment, then nodded her head. Return before the sun sets. If you're late, don't think about coming in. I let out a sigh of relief inwardly. I had received permission. Of course, if I were to stop by my birth home after the warehouse work, time would be tight, but still, seeing Mother's face once would be possible. As I was about to leave the room, Mother Jongnak stopped me. Wait a moment. Mother took something out from a corner of the room. It was a small cooler bag. The size was not large, but when I received what Mother handed over, it was heavier than I expected. Take this too. I was puzzled. I could not understand what this bag was, or why she was giving it to me. What is this? Deliver it to Manager Kim at the warehouse. He will know what to do. Mother did not give any further explanation. I bowed my head in greeting and left the room. The weight of the cooler bag in my hand bothered me strangely. I was curious about what was inside, but I did not dare to open it. On the way out of the house, as I walked carrying the bag, I kept trying to gauge its weight. It seemed like there might be fish inside, or it seemed like there might be something hard inside. Since it was a cooler bag, a cold sensation was transmitted to my hand. Manager Kim was a person who managed the port warehouse. I had seen him a few times. He was a middle-aged man with a fat build and an oily face. I could not tell what kind of transaction Mother Jongnak was conducting with him. One side of my heart was anxious. A thought flashed through my mind: could she perhaps be drawing me into something not good? But I soon shook off that thought. I wanted to believe that no matter how harsh my mother-in-law was, she would not put her daughter-in-law into something dangerous. When I arrived at the port, several women were already gathered in front of the warehouse. They were people who had come to receive day wages. I too mixed in among them and started working. Inside the warehouse, various kinds of seafood, salt, dried fish and such were piled up like mountains. Sorting and moving those was today's work. Even while working, the cooler bag kept bothering me. During a brief break time, I went to find Manager Kim. He was looking over a ledger in one corner of the warehouse. Manager Kim, I came from the Jongnak household. I was told to deliver this to you. Manager Kim looked up at me and took the cooler bag. A strange smile crossed his face. I see you did well. He did not even open the bag and immediately put it into his belongings. Watching that, I became even more puzzled. What on earth could be inside for him to accept it so naturally? But I did not ask further. I thought it was not something I needed to know. I had only done what my mother-in-law told me to do. Anything beyond that was not my business. The work finished when the sun was beginning to set. I received 5 nyang as day wages. I put that money in my bosom and hurried toward my birth home. Since she had told me to return before sunset, I would have to see Mother briefly and return right away. My birth home was 1 sijin distance from the port. I hastened my steps. At the thought of seeing Mother after so long, my heart was pounding. What kind of face should I show her? What should I say? I kept thinking as I walked. When I arrived at my birth home, Mother Munai was hanging laundry in the yard. Mother's eyes grew wide when she saw me. Harin! Mother put down the laundry and rushed to me. As I was embraced in Mother's arms, tears burst out. The sorrow I had been holding back poured out all at once. Why have you become so thin? Are you eating your meals properly? Mother's hand stroked my cheek. That touch was so warm. I cried without words for a long while. When we went inside and sat down, Mother prepared masugaru for me. It was something I had liked since I was young. Taking 1 sip, it felt like I had returned to my childhood. In this house, there were no rules, no need to watch anyone's mood. I was simply Mother's daughter. Is life in your husband's house hard? Mother asked carefully. I nodded my head. I wanted to tell the detailed story, but my mouth would not open. I did not want to cause Mother worry. I hear your mother-in-law is quite difficult. It seemed the village rumors had reached here. I smiled bitterly. It's bearable. Don't lie. It's all written on your face. Mother held my hand tightly. In those eyes were full of worry and pity. If it's hard, tell me. Should this Mother go and say something? I shook my head. If Mother came to my husband's house, the situation would clearly get worse. Mother Jongok extremely disliked contact with my birth family. It's all right, Mother. I'll manage it myself. Though it was a short time, that time spent with Mother became a great comfort to me. Before I left, Mother wrapped up rice cakes she had made herself. Give them to your mother-in-law. Tell her this Mother made them. As I received those rice cakes, my chest felt tight. Mother was still trying to maintain good relations with my husband's family. It was her heart wishing for me to be even a little more comfortable. As I left the house, Mother followed me out to the gate. Take care of yourself. And don't endure too much. I nodded and started walking. When I looked back, Mother was still standing in that place. I waved my hand. Mother also waved her hand. On the road back to my husband's house, the sun was gradually setting. I had to hurry. Since Mother Jongok had told me to return before sunset, if I was late, I could not know what I might hear. Even as I hastened my steps, today's events kept circling in my head. What had been in the cooler bag? Why had Manager Kim accepted it so naturally? What kind of transaction existed between my mother-in-law and him? The more I thought, the more anxious I became, but I was not in a position to ask about it. A daughter-in-law could not tell her mother-in-law what to do about her affairs. When the port village began to come into view, the sun had already descended close to the horizon. I quickened my steps even more. When I arrived home, the sun was just hanging on the horizon. I had barely made it in time. I opened the gate and entered inside. Mother Jongok was standing in the yard. It seemed she had been waiting for me. Did you receive the day wages? Yes, I received 5 nyang. I took the money from my bosom and gave it to Mother. Mother took the money and counted it. Then she nodded. You delivered the bag to Manager Kim. Yes, I delivered it. Mother did not say anything more. Only then did I remember the rice cakes Mother had given me. Mother, these are rice cakes my birth mother sent. Mother Jongok's eyes turned cold. I felt my spine grow cold at that gaze. You went to your birth home? I stopped by briefly. On the way. When did I say you could go to your birth home? Mother's voice became low. She was a person whose voice became lower when she was angry. I lowered my head. I apologize. I wanted to see Mother's face. Can you not distinguish between things you can do as you please and things you cannot? I could not give any answer. There was no room for excuse. That I had gone to my birth home without permission was clearly my fault. Mother did not accept the rice cakes I held out. You eat those. I don't need them. With those words, Mother went into her room. I stood alone in the yard, holding the bundle of rice cakes, standing for a long while. As I prepared the evening meal, my heart kept being heavy. It was not just that I had earned my mother-in-law's anger, but the events of today kept circling in my head. When I entered my mother-in-law's room carrying the meal tray, Mother was sitting by the window looking outside. I quietly set down the tray. Sit down. It was an unexpected word. I carefully took a seat. When you delivered the bag to Manager Kim today, what did he say? He didn't say anything particular, he only said I did well. Mother nodded. Silence flowed for a moment. Weren't you curious about what was inside it? I answered honestly. I was curious, but I did not open it. Mother looked at me for a long while. I could not tell what that gaze meant. You must continue that way in the future. Don't ask, just do as you're told. I lowered my head. Yes, I will keep it in mind. Mother did not speak any further. I withdrew and returned to the kitchen, but the anxiety in one corner of my heart did not disappear. What kind of work was my mother-in-law doing with Manager Kim? What had really been in that cooler bag? Though she had told me not to ask, so I could not ask, the questions only kept growing. That night, I could not fall asleep. The events of the day kept coming to mind. My birth mother's worried face, my mother-in-law's cold eyes, Manager Kim's strange smile, everything mixed together and disturbed my head. Doing came in late today as well. When he entered the room, I pretended to be asleep. I did not want to talk. No, I did not know what to say. He too must have been tired, for he soon fell asleep. Regular breathing sounds came. I looked at the ceiling and thought, what am I in this house? Am I a daughter-in-law, a worker, or just a tool used according to need? Only near dawn did I finally fall asleep, but not long after, my eyes opened again. Some sound came from outside. I carefully got up and approached the window. Someone was standing in the yard. Since it was in the darkness, I could not see the face, but from the build, it seemed to be a man. Then the sound of a door opening came from my mother-in-law's room. Mother Jongak came out and exchanged some words with that man. The sound was small, so I could not hear what was being said. After a while the man left. Mother too went into her room. I stood at the window for a long while. My heart was pounding. What was happening in this house? I felt that I had to find out, and at the same time, I also felt the fear that if I came to know it, something irreversible might happen. But I had already seen too much. Could I pretend not to know now? Before I could find an answer, the next morning I would hear news I could never have imagined. The next morning, I opened my eyes earlier than usual. The scene I had witnessed during the night kept circling in my head. Who was that man who came at dawn? What did he talk about with my mother-in-law? Even while preparing breakfast, I kept being absorbed in those thoughts. Then I almost cut my hand. I needed to pull myself together. In this state, I could not know what other mistakes I might make. When I entered my mother-in-law's room to give my morning greetings, Mother Jongak was sitting as usual. There was no sign at all that anything had happened during the night. Go out toward the breakwater today. It was an unexpected instruction. The breakwater was quite far from the village. What is there at the breakwater? Your birth mother is waiting, they say. I doubted my ears. My birth mother was waiting at the breakwater? The person who had been angry yesterday that I had been to my birth home was now telling me to meet my birth mother. I could not understand it. Mother, what does that? Don't ask. Just go. Mother Jongak was firm. I could not ask further and withdrew. When I returned to my room and was preparing to go out, my mother-in-law called me again. When I went in, Mother's hand was a cooler bag similar to yesterday's. Take this too. I received that bag. It was lighter than yesterday, but still I could feel something was inside. What is this? You'll know when you open it. Go and open it. I left the house carrying the bag. My head was complicated. Why was my mother-in-law suddenly letting me meet my birth mother? Yesterday she had been so angry, but today she was arranging a meeting herself. That change was puzzling. To the breakwater took about half a sigin on foot. The sea breeze blew. It was cold but refreshing wind. As I walked, my heart gradually became heavier. Something was strange. I had a feeling something did not fit. The bag in my hand kept bothering me. She had said I would know when I opened it, but I could not easily open it. I was afraid of what might be inside. When the end of the breakwater began to come into view, I saw one person standing in the distance. It was my birth mother Munai. Mother was standing looking at the sea. Her clothes fluttered in the wind. I quickened my steps. As I approached Mother closely, Mother turned her head. On that face were both joy and worry at the same time. You came. Mother, how are you here? Your mother-in-law sent word to meet here today. I became even more puzzled. My mother-in-law had directly sent word to my birth mother? And to meet in a remote place like the Breakwater. What could it possibly mean? Standing before Mother, my hands began to tremble without my knowing. I looked down at the bag I was holding. She had told me to open it. It seemed the time had come to open it, but my hands would not move. Needless fear washed over me. What was inside this? What if something bad was inside? All sorts of imaginations flashed through my head. What is that? Mother asked, pointing at the bag. My mother-in-law gave it to me. She told me to open it. Mother too made a puzzled expression. I took a deep breath and opened the bag. When I opened the first compartment of the bag, something unexpected met my eyes. It was rice balls with warm steam rising from them. Next to them was golden brown grilled fish. I stared blankly at those things. What could this mean? Had my mother-in-law packed food for my birth mother and me? It was hard to believe. The person who had treated me so coldly all this time. I could not continue my words. Mother too looked into the bag with a surprised expression. You're saying your mother-in-law packed this? Yes, it seems so. We too looked at those foods without words for a long while. The sea breeze blew. I sat down next to Mother. We sat side by side at the end of the breakwater looking at the sea. The sound of waves splashing came. I picked up one rice ball and gave it to Mother. Mother took it, and I too picked up one. Instead of words, we shared food. When I bit into it, warm rice grains spread in my mouth. The salt seasoning was just right. We shared the grilled fish too. It was clearly grilled with care. The flesh was soft and had no fishy smell. We ate for a while without any words. Words were not needed. Just sharing food together was enough. The time we had endured, the days we could not meet, the words we could not say all melted into that silence. Only after a long while did Mother open her mouth. So how are things these days? I answered honestly. It's hard, very hard. Mother took my hand. It was a rough, cracked hand. A hand that had suffered all her life. I held that hand tightly. Still, you must endure. Life in a husband's house is all like that. I know, that's why I'm enduring. But, Mother stopped speaking. It seemed she was about to say something but was holding back. But what? No, it's nothing. I studied Mother's face. It seemed she had something she wanted to say, but Mother did not speak further. We fell into silence again. Only the sound of waves came. Seabirds flew overhead. The sunlight was warm. Mother, I opened my mouth first. Yes, I'm actually scared. Mother looked at me. I continued speaking. I feel like my mother-in-law is going to drive me out. Since I cannot have a child, I feel like she thinks I'm useless. Mother's face hardened. Did she say such things? Not directly, but that's how it feels. A few days ago she told me that if I leave this house, I should never think of crossing the threshold again. Mother sighed. It was a deep sigh. That person is like that originally. Her words are harsh. I know, but still. I could not continue my words. Tears welled up. Mother stroked my back. Don't cry. Crying is no help at all. Yes, I swallowed my tears. If I cried in front of Mother, it would only make Mother worry more. After a long while, Mother spoke carefully. Actually, this Mother has something to say. I looked at Mother. Mother's expression looked serious. What is it? Your mother-in-law sending word it might not simply be to let us meet? I was puzzled. What does that mean? Mother hesitated for a moment, then spoke. Rumors are going around the village that your mother-in-law is entangled in some matter. My heart sank. The scene I had seen last night came to mind. The man who came at dawn in a conversation with my mother-in-law, and the cooler bag I had delivered yesterday. What matter? I don't know in detail, but something not good is happening at the port, they say. Something like smuggling. Smuggling. At that word, I felt like I could not breathe. Could my mother-in-law possibly be involved in such a thing? What had been in the bag I delivered to Manager Kim yesterday? Mother, yesterday I told Mother about what had happened yesterday, delivering the cooler bag. Manager Kim's attitude? How my mother-in-law had told me not to ask. Mother's face turned pale. I see. So that's why. So that's why what? Mother shook her head. It's nothing. Just be careful. Mother, what do you know? Please tell me, I asked urgently. But Mother closed her mouth. I cannot say now. Later, when the time comes, I'll tell you. I was frustrated. It was clear she was hiding something important, but I could not force her to tell what Mother did not want to say. The sun began to set. It was time to return. I must go now, I said as I stood up. Mother also stood up. Yes, go without being late. Mother held my hand tightly. Harin, yes, whatever happens, it's not your fault. Do you understand? I could not understand the meaning of those words. Whatever happens, it's not my fault. What on earth was about to happen? What do you mean? Just remember it. Whatever happens, it's not your fault. I left the breakwater with an anxious heart. Mother stood in that place watching over me. When I looked back, Mother's figure gradually became smaller. As I walked, I mulled over Mother's words. Whatever happens, it's not my fault. Didn't those words mean that something would happen ahead? And didn't they mean that I too would inevitably be entangled in it? My heart was heavy. My steps returning to my husband's house were heavy as 1,000 pounds. When I approached near the house, a strange scene met my eyes. Village people were gathered, murmuring. It seemed something had happened. I quickened my steps. I pushed through the gaps between people. What's happening? One woman saw me and said, "You know the Jonak household, right?" People came from the government office. I felt like my heart stopped. People came from the government office? I hurried and ran home. In front of the gate stood people wearing official robes, and in the yard, my mother-in-law Jonak was being dragged out, bound. "Mother," I cried out. My mother-in-law looked at me. That gaze was unexpectedly calm. "Stay inside. Don't do anything foolish." Those words were the last words she left me. My mother-in-law was dragged away by the officials. I could only stand there dazed, watching that scene. My birth mother's words circled in my head. Whatever happens, it's not your fault. Was this what that was about? And what should I do now? After my mother-in-law was dragged away, I could not move from that spot for a while. The sound of village people murmuring came only distantly. I could not believe what had happened before my eyes. "Aren't you the daughter-in-law of the Jonak household?" Someone spoke to me. I raised my head. It was a person wearing official robes. "Yes, that's correct. Do not leave the house for the time being. There will be an investigation." I nodded, without properly understanding what was being said. I just did as I was told. When I went inside the house, everything was in disarray. The traces of officials having searched were evident. Drawers were open and clothes were scattered on the floor. My mother-in-law's room was even worse. Everything was ransacked as if thieves had come through. I sat blankly on the wooden floor. I could not know what had happened, what I should do from now on. It now seemed clear that my mother-in-law had been involved in smuggling. That bag I had delivered yesterday was probably also related to that matter. Then the bag I had taken today came to mind. It seemed I had left it at the breakwater. After sharing food with Mother and hurrying back, I had failed to take it with me. But wait, the bag had definitely been in my hands. It seemed I had brought it when I came home. I looked around. I remembered putting it down when talking with the official in front of the gate. When I went out to the yard, the bag was placed next to the gate. Fortunately, it seemed the officials had not taken it. I picked up the bag. Since the food had already been eaten, it should be an empty bag. But strangely, the bag was still heavy. It felt heavy as stone. Tilting my head, I opened the bag. The first compartment was empty. It was where the rice balls and grilled fish had been. But there was another compartment at the bottom of the bag. It was a compartment I had not noticed earlier. I carefully opened that compartment. Inside was a bundle of old envelopes, and next to it was a small bundle. When I unwrapped the bundle, medicinal herbs came out. A familiar smell came. These were medicinal herbs used when one's body was not well somewhere. Below the medicinal herbs was a small folded note. Something was written in clumsy handwriting. I unfolded the note and read it. "I was concerned about your empty-handed departing figure." That one line was all there was, but that one line struck my chest hard. This was my mother-in-law's handwriting. It was what Mother Jonak had written. I looked at that note for a long while. An empty-handed departing figure, that was speaking of my departing figure going to meet my birth mother. Had my mother-in-law been worried about me? Though she had treated me so coldly all this time, had she been harboring such feelings inside? I unwrapped the bundle of envelopes. Inside was money. It was not a small amount. My hands trembled with surprise. What was this money? Why had my mother-in-law given me such a thing? And why had she not handed it directly but hidden it at the bottom of the bag? My head became complicated. Was there a connection between my mother-in-law being dragged to the government office and this money? Had she perhaps known in advance that something would happen and prepared this? Then another note caught my eye. It was tucked between the bundle of envelopes. I carefully took it out and unfolded it. On the second note was written this: if you are looking at this, I am probably already gone. This money is yours. Do not show it to anyone. Use it when you need it. I could not breathe. My mother-in-law had anticipated this situation. She had known she would be dragged away, or that something would happen, and had prepared this in advance. Tears flowed. I did not even know why tears were coming. It was true that my mother-in-law had tormented me all this time. She had treated me coldly, bound me with rules, given me no room to breathe. But these notes were telling a different story. Inside my mother-in-law, too, there had been some feelings toward me. She just could not express them, or rather, did not know how to express them. I looked at the medicinal herbs again. Motherwort, non-K, nidium, all were herbs that nourish a woman's body. They were for me who could not have a child. That my mother-in-law had prepared such things. Had I not known Mother too well all this time? Had I seen only the outward appearance and not seen the heart contained inside? But now I did not know how to accept this. My mother-in-law had already been dragged away. If she was involved in smuggling, she would not return easily. Perhaps never. I put the note and envelopes and medicinal herbs all back in the bag, and I held the bag to my chest. This was the last thing my mother-in-law had left me. The sun began to set. I was still sitting on the wooden floor. Duane had not yet returned. He was probably out at sea. What kind of reaction would he show when he learned that Mother had been dragged away? Then the sound of the gate opening came. Duane had returned. His face was pale. It seemed he had already heard the news. Mother. He could not continue his words. I nodded. She was taken away. People came from the government office. Duane sank down in the yard. His shoulders were trembling. I approached him and sat beside him. I did not know what to say. After a long while, Duane opened his mouth. I knew. Knew what? What Mother was doing. I looked at him with surprise. He had known? Then why had he not said anything? It was diverting goods at the port, secret trading to avoid taxes, in league with Manager Kim. I recalled the bag I had delivered yesterday. I could now guess what had been inside it. Why didn't you say anything? What would change by saying it? Mother was already in too deep. Duane continued speaking with his head bowed. After Father passed away, Mother protected this house alone. The fisherman's work alone made the household tight, so I think she started such work. I listened quietly. These were stories I had not known about my mother-in-law. At first it was a small matter, but it gradually grew, and later she could not get out. Why didn't you stop her? I did stop her, many times, but Mother would not listen. She said this was all for you and our grandchildren, for me. At those words my chest ached. And this, I showed Duane the bag, the things inside, money and medicinal herbs and notes. Duane read the note and sighed. That's very like Mother. What do you mean? Not being able to say it directly, conveying her heart this way. She's been like that since I was young, Duane said as he put down the note. Mother originally is not good at expressing herself. She has feelings, but she's clumsy at putting them into words, so she always tried to show through actions. But even those actions were awkward, so in the end the other person would not know it and pass by. Only then did many things begin to make sense to me. My mother-in-law's cold attitude, strict rules, had those been not hatred but clumsy expressions of love? Had it been misguided worry that she must properly teach her daughter-in-law? Of course that did not make the wounds I had received disappear. How hard it had been with my mother-in-law's words and actions. That memory was still vivid. But this one note, these medicinal herbs, this money gave me a somewhat different perspective. My mother-in-law too had been thinking of me in her own way. What will happen to Mother? I asked. Dwayne shook his head. I don't know. If the smuggling charge is serious, she'll be exiled, or if worse. He could not finish his words. That night I could not fall asleep. I read my mother-in-law's note over and over again. The clumsy handwriting stayed in my eyes. I was concerned about your empty-handed departing figure. That one sentence kept staying in my heart. When I went to meet my birth mother, my mother-in-law had felt sorry that I went empty-handed, so she had packed food and had even prepared money and medicinal herbs. Why had she not said it directly? Why had she conveyed it this way, roundabout, hidden? If she had handed it directly while saying one warm word, I too would have received it differently, but that had been my mother-in-law's way. She had been a person who had lived that way all her life. The next day, rumors spread through the village that Jonok had been involved in smuggling and dragged to the government office. People whispered, some nodded saying they had known it would be so, and some clicked their tongues saying it was regrettable. I stayed shut up inside the house. If I went outside, it seemed I would not be able to bear people's gazes. Dwayne went to the government office early in the morning. He said he would find out about Mother's situation. I waited for him to return. When the sun was setting, Dwayne returned. His face was dark. What happened? Exile has been confirmed. She will go to a distant county. Exile. I felt like my chest was collapsing. That my mother-in-law would go to a distant place, to a place where I might not know if I could see her again. When? 10 days from now, they say. 10 days. Could I see her even once in that time? Could I at least give her a final farewell? Is visitation possible? It will be difficult, they say, because she's a criminal. I sank down. Was this how it ended? Without having even one proper conversation at the end, parting this way, the note my mother-in-law had left came to mind. That clumsy handwriting, awkward sincerity. If only she had said it directly. If only she had embraced me even once. That night, I made a decision. I had to see my mother-in-law somehow. At least one last time. I had to see her face and give her a proper farewell. I said to Doyen, I want to see Mother. Please find a way. Doyen looked at me for a long while, then nodded. All right. I'll look into a way. I put my mother-in-law's note in my bosom. I wanted to show her this directly. I wanted to tell her that I had received Mother's heart, that I was grateful. Though it was late, too late, I still wanted to convey it. Outside the window the moon was rising. What would tomorrow bring? I could not know, but one thing, my determination to see my mother-in-law, that was certain. To see my mother-in-law, I searched in every direction. Doyen made requests through someone he knew at the government office, and I paced in front of the government office every day. But it was not easy. Only the answer came back that visitation with criminals was not permitted. The time of 10 days was gradually diminishing. I became impatient. I could not send my mother-in-law away like this. I had to find a way somehow. Then one day unexpected news came. My mother-in-law's exile had been cancelled. Manager Kim had confessed to all the crimes, and it was revealed that my mother-in-law had been forced to participate under threat. When I heard that news, I sank down. The strength left my legs. That my mother-in-law was returning, that I could see her again, but the joy was brief. I suddenly became anxious. When my mother-in-law returned, what should I say to her? The things that had happened, the note and money and medicinal herbs. How should I speak of those? And above all, I felt sorry to my mother-in-law. I felt as if Mother had been dragged away because of that bag I had delivered. Of course, it was not my fault. My birth mother had said so too, but the guilt did not easily disappear. I felt I had to do something. Just sitting and waiting was unbearable, so I went to the port. If workers were needed, I would help. At the port a ship happened to be in. The work of unloading cargo was in full swing. I mixed in among them and helped with the work. I carried heavy loads, sorted fish, and moved salt sacks. Normally I would not have done such work, but that day I just wanted to move my body. I wanted to forget the complicated thoughts in my head. The work was hard. By the time the sun rose to midday, I was already exhausted. But I did not stop. I continued working, as if receiving punishment. Even at lunchtime, I did not rest. Even when other people went to eat, I remained and continued working. The harder my body worked, the lighter my heart seemed to become. But the body was honest. When afternoon came, I gradually began to lose strength. My vision grew dizzy, my legs wobbled. Still, I did not stop. It was the moment I tried to lift a heavy salt sack. Suddenly, my vision went black. The next moment, I had collapsed on the ground. I heard people's voices around me. It seemed someone was calling my name, but my body would not move. Even when I tried to open my eyes, they would not open. Dimly, I felt someone lifting me up, and my consciousness faded. When I opened my eyes, I was lying in a familiar room. It was our house room. Someone was sitting at my bedside. "Are you conscious?" At that voice, I was startled. It was my mother-in-law, Knox's voice. When I opened my eyes wide and looked, my mother-in-law was truly sitting there. "Mother, don't speak. You won't have strength yet." My mother-in-law wiped my forehead with a wet cloth. That touch was unfamiliar. I had never received such care from my mother-in-law. "When did you return?" "This morning. When I came, they said you had collapsed at the port." My mother-in-law's face was hardened. It seemed she was angry, and it also seemed she was worried. I tried to sit up. "Stay lying down." My mother-in-law pressed my shoulder. I lay back down. "Why did you do such unreasonable work?" "It was not work you should do. I just could not stay still. Could not stay still." "What does that mean?" I bit my lip. Tears welled up. I felt like Mother being dragged away was my fault, because I delivered that bag. "What are you saying?" My mother-in-law's voice rose, but she was not angry. She seemed flustered. "How is that your fault?" "I was the one who told you to do it." But what? Whether you knew or didn't know, how was it your fault?" My mother-in-law sighed. It was a deep sigh. "I was wrong, drawing you into such matters, and making you suffer all this time. It's all my fault." I doubted my ears, that my mother-in-law was admitting fault, and directly to me. "Mother." My mother-in-law took my hand. It was a rough, crude hand, but warmth could be felt from that hand. While I was at the government office, I thought about many things. Why did I live that way? Why was I so harsh? My mother-in-law's eyes were reddening. I held my breath and listened. I thought rules were important, that I must properly teach my daughter-in-law, that only then would this household stand upright. But Mother stopped speaking. Her voice was trembling, but that was all an excuse, because I didn't know how to express my heart. I just hid behind rules. Tears flowed from me. My mother-in-law was crying too. It was a sight I had never seen. That person who had seemed so strong and cold was crying like this. At the government office, I thought of you often. When I thought that if things went on like this, I might never see you again. Only then did regret come. Why had I never treated you warmly even once? Why had I never said you did well even once? My mother-in-law gripped my hand even tighter. Rules were an excuse. Your being safe comes first. I only realized that now. At those words, my chest felt like it would burst. These were words I had wanted so much to hear all this time. That I was important, that my being safe came first. "Mother," I could not continue my words. Thoughts burst out. My mother-in-law awkwardly stroked my back. "Don't cry. I'm sorry." "No, I didn't understand, Mother, either. The reason you acted that way, the heart contained within it, I didn't know." I took out the note from my bosom. That note my mother-in-law had put in the bag. "This, I received it. Thank you." My mother-in-law looked at the note and her face reddened. She seemed embarrassed. "You saw that?" "Yes. You said you were concerned about my empty-handed departing figure." My mother-in-law turned her head. It seemed she was trying to hide tears. "Yes, since you were going to your birth home, I thought if you went empty-handed it would be awkward facing your birth mother, but giving it directly was also awkward, so I just put it in the bag." Laughter came to me. I must have made a strange face, crying while laughing. "Mother, you could have given it directly. That would have been even better." "I know, but I didn't know how to do it. I've lived that way all my life." My mother-in-law sighed softly. "I'm going to try to change from now on. It won't be easy, though." After that day, the atmosphere in the house began to change little by little. My mother-in-law's words were still cold. Habits did not change easily, but her actions changed. When I woke in the morning, Water was already boiling. When I returned from the market, warm soup was prepared. Without speaking, she took care of me with her body. Eat your meal. It was still a blunt tone, but now I could know the heart contained within it. I answered with a smile, "Yes, mother." Doane changed too. Instead of staying silent as before, he occasionally spoke to me. "Wasn't today hard? The wind was cold. Be careful of catching cold." They were trivial words, but those words became great comfort to me. That there was someone in this house who thought of me, that alone gave me strength to endure. One evening my mother-in-law said to me, "Go to your birth home tomorrow." I was shocked that my mother-in-law would tell me first to go to my birth home. "Really?" "Yes. Your mother will want to see you too. Go." I went to my birth home. My birth mother Munai was glad to see me, and she was surprised that my face had brightened. "Did things get better with your mother-in-law?" "Yes, little by little." I told her about what had happened, that my mother-in-law had been dragged away and returned, the conversation we had that day, and the changed appearance now. Mother listened quietly, then nodded. "I'm glad. I'm truly glad. You worried a lot too, didn't you, Mother?" "Of course. How much my heart ached watching you suffer." On the road returning from my birth home, I suddenly realized this road was no longer heavy. Before, my steps returning to my husband's house had been heavy as 1,000 pounds, but now it was different. When I arrived home, my mother-in-law was hanging laundry in the yard. Seeing me, she said, "You're back. Is your mother well?" "Yes, she's well." "Good. Go inside and rest." It was still a blunt tone, but I could know the heart contained in those words. "Did you have a good visit?" "You did well." "Yes, Mother." I went into the room with a smile. That year winter passed and spring came. The sea breeze still blew, but now it did not feel cold. I still went to the dawn market, but now my mother-in-law boiled warm soup and waited. When Doane returned from the sea, he told me about what had happened that day. We were becoming a family. We were not perfect. We were still awkward with each other, and sometimes clashed, but still it was all right, because we had begun to know each other's hearts. My mother-in-law's note was still in my bosom, that clumsy handwriting saying I was concerned about your empty-handed departing figure. That was the warmest words to me. To all of you listening to this story now, do you perhaps have feelings you haven't expressed? Words you haven't conveyed? Before it's too late, why don't you try saying them once? It's all right to be awkward, because hearts get through.